It is Sunday, May 17th, 2015. I'm standing just off the property of Algonquin College, where I'm protesting against the Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial thereof, and in particular the utterly shameful misuse of Canada's blasphemy law by the Unitarian Universalist Association, which has hired Stikeman Elliott Barristers and Solicitors litigation lawyer, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe, to falsely accuse me of the archaic crime of blasphemous libel in Bill Cosby-style legal bullying that clearly seeks to cover up and hide the fact that certain Unitarian Universalist ministers, to say nothing of certain Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers, and indeed ordinary Unitarian Universalist lay people, are guilty of engaging in what Maitre Coulombe describes as such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. I was served with an arrogant and aggressive cease and desist demand letter, which amongst other highly questionable and even laughable accusations accused me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel on the following false basis. Your unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape are defamatory, and so defamatory that they allegedly amount to pretty good. Essentially what it means is that the Unitarian Universalist Association in Boston, do you know anything about the Unitarians? Yeah. Okay. So the UUA, Peter Morales' administration, hired Stikeman Elliott Barristers and Solicitors litigation lawyer to have me served with a cease and desist demand letter, which accused me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel for allegedly making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. That's an exact quote from the letter. Essentially, they were trying to intimidate me into removing blog posts about some Unitarian Universalist rapists. Now, the blog posts that I wrote were about people who had actually been convicted and sent to jail, and the blog posts were based on information that I got from newspaper articles and other reliable sources. So they were hardly unfounded. Essentially what it comes down to is that the Unitarian Universalist Association engaged in Bill Cosby-style legal bullying in an effort to hide the blog posts that tell the truth about pedophiles and rapists. So I'm protesting against the misuse of blasphemy law in the effort to cover up pedophilia and rape. And besides betraying the second and fourth and other principles of Unitarian Universalism, accusing anyone of blasphemy for any reason whatsoever is just totally betraying the religious heritage of the Unitarian Universalist religious community, because Unitarians were traditionally the ones being accused of blasphemy by the Christians. So Unitarians have a long history of opposing blasphemy law, opposing the use of blasphemy law, and yet in the 21st century, atheist Unitarians decided to accuse me of blasphemy. And why? To hide the worst form of clergy abuse imaginable.
So you're saying there are pedophiles in the Boston section of it?
Correct. But not just the Boston area. I blogged about two cases. One was a Unitarian Universalist minister. His name is Reverend Mac W. Mitchell, so you can look him up. He went to India and lured teenage Tibetan refugees away from their family with promises of a better life in America. He said, I'll take them under my wing, I'll educate them, and so on. He proceeded to rape them over a period measured in years. One of them finally escaped, ran away. And then she told her story to some church members, and the church members, 5 women apparently, reported the rapes to the police. and he was charged and tried and convicted. The other case that I blogged about wasn't even a minister, it was an ordinary layperson to the best of my knowledge, but he was convicted of raping preteen girls who were no older than 12 years old at the times the rapes took place. As I said, both of these cases were reported in the newspapers, nothing false about them, and yet the UUA wanted me to, memory hold and as I said, accused me of blasphemy in an effort to do so, which is insane, I think.
So your website,
right?
It reports on people who are child molesters.
Well, no, it's the funny thing is that that's not even my main issue. I blog about clergy misconduct in general. To me, a lot of non-sexual clergy misconduct is important too. Verbal and psychological abuse and so on, intolerance and bigotry and so on. So the funny thing is like it's not like my whole blog was devoted to those issues. This is a couple of blog posts out of literally a few thousand, believe it or not. But of course this was about serious stuff. I mean, it's all about serious stuff as far as I'm concerned, but this is about, pedophilia and rape. And the UUA wanted my blog post to disappear. So they hired this lawyer to intimidate me. Unfortunately, I'm not that easily intimidated. So
did you talk to the UUA about what that happened?
Of course, I wrote back to the UUA. I wrote back to the lawyer. I demanded a formal withdrawal of the accusation and an apology, a public apology. Of course, they haven't done so. So one of the reasons I'm protesting is because they never moved forward. They never tried to have me charged or whatever with any of the, there are other accusations, not a single one. I said, come on, bring it, let's go to court. Any one of these, I don't care. And they never moved forward on one of them. And, but on the other hand, nobody's faced the slightest accountability. The people responsible for that legal bullying have gotten away with it so far. And quite frankly, nobody seems to care. I mean, are you attending the meeting here?
Yeah.
So you're Unitarian Universalist?
Well, I'm not.
You're not. Okay. No, but okay. Well, this is the funny thing: is people who are Unitarian Universalists, the vast majority don't want to know. Like they don't ask questions like you're asking. Sometimes they're even insulting and abusive. Like one guy's calling me sick and so on. Today I've been protesting for several hours, and in that whole time I've had dozens of Unitarian Universalists go back and forth, and maybe 3 of them have asked questions. So that's why I asked if you were, So anyway, no, it's if you know anything, if your wife's a Unitarian Universalist, you presumably know a bit about the 7 principles and so on. So do you know what the principles are? Okay, do you know what the... Where you're from, a local, Ottawa?
No, we're from
Mississauga, okay. Well, that's the other thing too, is the clergy are really bad because they're basically involved, like they know about this. There's lots of Unitarian Universalist ministers that I've brought this to their attention, and yet they just totally ignore it. I was here in January, and I went to the Ottawa church, and they have this thing called sharing joys and concerns during the service. I stood up in front of the congregation, and I told them what I told you, that I'd been falsely accused of blasphemous libel, and I wanted the church to do something about it, demand an explanation, whatever. Nothing. So here I am today.
But isn't that kind of tough on your pocketbook to come to these things?
You know what? It's really funny because I come on the cheap, and so far I've spent maybe 20, 30 bucks. I came using rideshare from Montreal. It's like $15. It cost me $15. Maybe under $100 bucks. It's going to cost me under $100 bucks. I get to see Ottawa, get to see the Tulip Festival, get to see the Parliament buildings.
There's a Tulip Festival.
Yeah, there's Tulip Festival.
I was wondering why they were talking about so many tulips and
yeah.
importance and all that thing.
It's a gift from the Dutch government. When the Canadians liberated Holland, they donated tulip bulbs every year. There's like thousands of tulips. to thank Canada for liberating Holland. So anyway, no, it's just the amount of psychological denial and willful ignorance is just astounding. Like the reason I'm out here, I cannot, like this is the property line, because I started protesting this morning in front of the theater. Within a few minutes, security came and told me I was trespassing and I had to get off. Now the only reason they would do that is if somebody said get rid of this guy. So the hypocrisy is pretty palpable, you know. So.
I think. You
Karina.
in Calgary?
No,
Karina.
You're in the Montreal one.
I'm in Montreal. Yeah.
You live in Canada or States?
Canada. I live in Montreal. Yeah.
Oh, you live in Montreal.
Yeah. It's not that far. Yeah.
Because I would have thought, because my wife said, hey, I seen that guy before.
Well, she might have.
She might have seen you at the Montreal.
She might have seen me in Montreal. She might have seen me. I've been at other previous CUC annual general meetings in Toronto and so on. So she might have seen me there.
Oh, you've gone to Toronto?
Oh yeah. I've gone to Boston. I've protested in Boston a couple of times. Anyway, yeah, it's been 3 years since they accused me of the blasphemy, and I was protesting before that. So no, they're very, very stubborn people, these Unitarians, but not as stubborn as me. So they picked a fight with the wrong person, basically. So.
And all you're looking for is an apology.
Essentially, you know, it certainly began with that. I think I want to see some real accountability too now. Like people have to face some serious accountability because they're really gone too far over the line.
Especially with the lawyer letter, I know that's.
Yeah, like, you know, the problem is like the top level people, nothing ever happens to them, you know. They never even get a reprimand, let alone real discipline. And the same goes for the clergy too. Now occasionally, you know, if like somebody commits a crime, you know, and they're convicted, okay, they might be defrocked, you know. But there's actually a lot of clergy misconduct that virtually nothing happens to the minister. People complain, the complaint's brushed off, and you know, nothing really happens.
Is
so.
that the Unitarian clergy or clergy all around?
Well, it may be all around, but it's certainly, you know, the Unitarians are as bad as anyone else, put it that way. So it's pretty sad, you know. They talk about justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, but they don't practice it. They call for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, which is what you're doing right now. But the vast majority of Unitarians won't do it, you know. So.
Because I had to come by to find out what was going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Normally, you know, you'd ask people and they won't know. Because I asked.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they said, really? Well, what's he protesting?
Right.
They really didn't know. And
Yeah. They don't want to know.
I had to come there myself.
Right. Well, thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.
No problem. All right.
And if you want, I would appreciate it actually, if, since your wife is a Unitarian Universalist, I'd appreciate it if you told her what happened, what it's about, because I believe Canadians in general, like just as a Canadian, not a Unitarian Universalist, I think you should be appalled that they would accuse someone of blasphemy to cover up clergy abuse. I think so.
Well, I don't like the bullying technique.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I understand people have their view of things,
Hmm.
but I don't like when you said, when they sent you that letter,
Yeah.
I think that was a nasty business.
It is. It's very nasty. And
I think if they sent you a personal letter, would have been different.
well, this is the interesting thing is like before sending me that letter, they never
Contact.
They never said, "Hey, we have some concerns about this or that."
They should have contacted people first.
And you know what the funniest thing is in 2010, in April 2010, I went down to Boston to protest, but it turned out to be the marathon weekend.
Yeah.
So I realized like it's not a slow news day, so chances of getting news coverage are like zero. So you know what? I'll attend the board meeting instead because it was a board meeting. I said if I can, I'll attend the board meeting and I'll ask questions, and so I did. And I raised issues which they never addressed, but President Morales, who's sort of like the top UUA leader, I asked him at the time, in 2010, I said, will you please reopen and re-examine some cases where I made complaints, not about sexual misconduct, but non-sexual misconduct. I said, please reopen and re-examine in these cases and overturn the negligent decision. And he said, his exact words, we're not reopening something that's years and years and years old. So I said, we're not reopening this stuff because it's old. Then 2 years later, he reopened stuff that's like 30 years old.
Well, I understand that that's not right.
Yeah.
Because it's not done.
Yeah.
And if it's not resolved,
Yeah.
it should be resolved.
Well, that's it. They don't even try to resolve it. You know,
I'm kind of surprised
Yeah,
to
yeah.
hear that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm not too surprised.
Yeah, you're not naive, you know.
Yeah, you know, about certain things.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But
I
it
know it happens in all sorts of
exactly. But it's, to me, it's, you know, the Unitarians. They're always going on about how great they are. You know, the goody two shoes of religion. You know, we're the good guys. Everyone. And it's like, no, you're not as nice as you like to think. You know. So
you try to be the best that they can be.
well, you know,
they still have a lot of their faults.
if this is the best that they can be, it's not good enough. It's like, you know, I've heard that so many. Oh, we're doing our best. Well, I'm sorry, but your best is shit. It's like, you know, seriously. I mean, at a certain point, it's like, you know, sometimes they are doing good stuff, fine, but I don't know how many times when I've raised these kinds of issues, oh, we're doing our best. Well, no, your best is appalling. You know, try harder. You know, so anyway, thanks for the conversation, and I would appreciate it if perhaps you got together with your wife and sent an email to President Morales. You can find his email address. It's easy enough. I think it's just president@uua.org. And say, hey, we'd like an explanation for this. You know, and see if you probably won't even get a response, but you know, just say, explain yourself here. What's this about? Why did you accuse the guy? Why haven't you moved forward? Why haven't you withdrawn? You know, it's,
When did this start? What year?
well, the blasphemous libel accusation was made in June of 2012. So that's like 3 years. It's coming up for 3 years. But the non-sexual stuff that I began my protest about was the late 90s, actually. So no, if you think that's by no means the only bullying. I was actually charged